destroyed by the Seattle Seahawks, and they still have 2 tough games against the Panthers to play. They could easily come back and take this division.
Yeah, this one was big. Just Russell Wilson going off on this game. This was his first 300-plus games since week 1, and that's impressive to me. This was the game I was waiting to see. I needed this for him. I hadn't believed in him yet. I know he's a good quarterback, and the record shows it, but this game proved it to me that he's elite. He's going to take this team far, and this puts them in a great position. They're now 2 games up over the Saints. They're 3 games up if you count this tiebreaker now that it's head-to-head. And they're looking like they're going to grab that number 1 spot in the NFC playoff picture. And this is huge. Russell Wilson is 14-0 at home starting since he's joined the league. And I believe he's 8-6 on the road. So that's obviously home field advantage for him. And this is huge.
Yeah, you look at both of these teams. Both of them have outstanding home records, but haven't done very well on the road compared to how well they've played. But again, the Saints just got blown out by the Seahawks. It wasn't even close. Regardless of if you're on the road or away, you need to put up more points than that is when you have the Saints' high-powered offense. And I think the Seahawks just proved that they are the best in the league. And I don't think there's much debate about it now. Russell Wilson played a very complete game, and he proved that he's playing like an elite quarterback. The team isn't just carrying him along. This team's by far the most balanced team. They're good on every aspect of the game. I can't really point out a glaring weakness, especially now that they have Percy Harvin back. I really don't know where to go from here.
Well, for me in this game, both defenses stood out for me, but in different ways. The Seattle defense, which I now believe is number 1 in the league in points and 2nd in yards, and that's the opposite of the Carolina Panthers, who are 2nd in points and 1st in yards. So the 2 of them are kind of jostling for that number 1 defensive spot. They did great in that game. They held Breeze to under 150 yards, which never happens. The Saints' run game couldn't get going, which we've seen shine at certain parts during the year. And this Saints defense, which is a top 5 defense, maybe not after this game, but they just looked awful. They were blowing coverages. Seemed like every play Russell Wilson had a guy wide open. And they did stop the run, though. Marshawn Lynch only 45 yards. Actually, Russell Wilson outrushed him with 47. So they were able to stop the run, but they just couldn't stop Russell Wilson's passing game.
Yeah, they stopped the run, but with Marshawn Lynch, regardless of when you stop him, if you stop him in the first half, and he's always a threat. So regardless of if he isn't running well, it just helps the team more. And it's just every single play, as you said, there just seemed to be some guy wide open deep for the Seahawks, and the Saints couldn't stop him. And it didn't help that Breeze would get on the field, throw a 3 and out, and just couldn't get the offense moving, keeping the Saints' defense on more. And then you got to look also at the 12th man. The Seahawks broke the sound record again that the Chiefs broke. The Chiefs fans broke earlier this year. But the Saints, it has to be hard to play in Seattle. It's just such a big advantage playing there with it being so loud.
Not only that, it was also cold and raining in there, and that's not what the Saints are used to, being able to play in a dome for their home games. So what do you think? Any chance that the Saints are able to take over this number 1 spot? That Seattle basically has the 3-game lead now. It'd basically be a miracle. And then we'll talk about this a little later, but is this Seattle team legit? Did this game prove to you that they're a Super Bowl contending champion? I mean, sorry, that was worded. We're a Super Bowl contender and then maybe a champion.
I definitely think they are. There's no doubt about it. You look at how they're playing. They're 11-1. They've lost to the Colts. A lot of good teams have lost to the Colts. The Colts have just been inconsistent. That's why they're not number 1. You look at Denver, you look at the 49ers as well. The Colts are a good team when they're playing well, so I don't think it's that bad of a loss. And they just blew out what many people considered the best team in the country. I think a lot of people went into this game thinking the Saints were the best team in the NFL. A lot of people thought Seahawks were. A lot of people thought Denver was. But
yeah, the Saints could have been 11-0, except for the very bad loss to the Patriots in that 30-second drive Brady put up, and another bad loss to the Jets.
I just think it proves a lot. I think Seattle's just they're dominating, and now they have the number 1 seed. To say that they're not Super Bowl contenders is I can't see it because they have the number 1 seed. They're playing at home all the games in the playoffs up until the Super Bowl. I don't see them losing at home. I could maybe see them losing in the Super Bowl, but I think they're going to get to the Super Bowl now. I think they have to be the lead favorite in the NFC.
Yeah, I think they're definitely the best in the NFC, but I still don't know how they would stack up against a Denver team and even a Patriots team with the experience Brady has, even throughout all their shortcomings this year. I'm not ready to say that they're leaps and bounds ahead of them. It would definitely be a close game, but we'll wait for that when it comes. This is definitely a confidence booster for them because it looks like it could end up being a Seattle and New Orleans NFC Championship game. Maybe the Panthers slip in there too, but those are the top 3 teams in the NFC right now, and this is huge for them. So how about the other game? The other huge one this week was the battle in the AFC West again, Denver and Kansas City. What are your thoughts on that game, Chase?
I think a lot of people saw this coming. It was a close game. Broncos still won. The Broncos were a better team out. I couldn't see the Broncos coming off having 2 losses in a row, having lost to the Patriots earlier in overtime, which happened because of a freak accident by Wes Welker and just happened to he didn't touch the ball, but he didn't really signal it well on a punt where the Patriots won. I just think the Broncos are a better team. They know that. They beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs haven't been doing too well. They started out 9-0, now they're 9-3, having lost 3 in a row. I think this proves that the Broncos are just the better team overall.
Yeah, I never really thought the Chiefs were better than the Broncos, and I actually picked, even from the start, that they would take 2 out of 2 from the Kansas City Chiefs, even going into Arrowhead Stadium with the noise factor there. Another place that's great to play for the Chiefs on their home, but another great game for Peyton Manning. 5 touchdowns, 4 of them to Eric Decker, and Manning with over 400 yards. That's very impressive with him. 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, Decker just had a career day. I just think this Broncos team is, it has such a good offense. I don't know how someone can stop it. Like, the Chiefs' defense is good. Obviously, it slacked a little bit the past few weeks, but I don't really know how to stop it. The Patriots did a great job. They ended up forcing turnovers late, which you need to do, and the offensive line is just too good to get to Peyton Manning. Only the Colts have really done it. This Denver team's dangerous, and if they can keep up this level of play, I see them going to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, this was a huge game in that AFC West race because now one team is going to fight with the Patriots for the number 1 spot, and the other one is going to end up playing a first-round game. And it'll be against a good division leader in the Colts or the Bengals, maybe even the Ravens. So this was huge for them, and the Broncos now basically have a 2-game lead over the Chiefs because they have the tiebreaker and they're up a game. What do you think about this Chiefs team? Are they done now? Do you see them losing first round? What do you think?
I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose first round. Again, they haven't really played that many good teams, and they played the Chargers, who I think are a good team despite their record. It's just they end up having a very tough schedule. That's why they're not going to make the playoffs. But they're not the Broncos, obviously, even though they did keep up with the Broncos when they played. It's just they lose to them. They're not winning. They don't have any big wins on their schedule that really mean anything. So I could see them losing first round to the Broncos. It could end up being, or to the Patriots if they play them. I think they're just not that good of a team. They're losing first round.
First round. I'm saying they get in as a wild card spot and end up having to play a division leader in the Bengals or Colts. What do you think? I agree with you. If they end up winning that and then playing a team who got a bye, no chance. They haven't proved that. They're out. But it could be an interesting matchup with these first-round teams. I think they still have to play the Colts later on this season. That'll be another big test for them.
I could see them winning or losing. I think mostly not because of the Kansas City Chiefs themselves, but the Bengals and the Colts have both had inconsistent play this year. And sometimes they come out showing they're great teams. They can beat the best. You look at the Colts, who've beaten the Broncos. They've beaten the 49ers. They've beaten the Seahawks. You look at the Bengals. They beat the Patriots they're not bad teams, but the thing is they need to prove their consistency. So I think it really depends on how those teams come out and play as opposed to the Chiefs.
I agree with you. Good points there. Let's switch it up now. Big game for me with my Eagles beating the then 7-4 Cardinals, making them 7-5. Eagles jump up to 7-5 and stay at pace with the Cowboys for the tie in the division. And what a good game for Nick Foles. 19 touchdowns now, 0 interceptions. One away from Peyton Manning's record that he set this year with 20. I'm feeling really good about this team, and I think anyone who's an Eagles fan is feeling good too. A lot of weapons showing up for this team now. With Michael Vick, it was basically the big three. It was Vick, McCoy, and Jackson. Those three had to make the plays, and that was it. And now you see Riley Cooper step up. We brought that up before. Brent Selleck caught a touchdown. A rookie tight end, Zach Ertz, with 2. And then they're just getting a lot of guys involved, and this is making their team very good. The defense is playing a lot better. They're forcing turnovers, and that's going to be a big part of this team going forward.
Yeah, it was a huge game. It really proved that the Eagles are a good team. They have a big win against a good team. The Cardinals I still feel are very underrated. They were 7-4 going into this game. They had just beaten the Colts the week before. And the Eagles come out with this win. Foles has a great game. He's been playing like a madman his entire during this win streak. It really impressed me. I think the Eagles are a legit contender now.
I heard Barry Sanders brought up the fact that you might even consider Nick Foles as an MVP candidate if he keeps this up. Not right now, but if he can finish the season with no interceptions, maybe one, and get this team into the playoffs after where they started in the last 2 years they've had with a new head coach, that would be huge. And I think I wouldn't go as far as say put him as MVP, but he's definitely the quarterback of the future, and he's here to stay. He's just doing amazing. And another part of this kind of overlooked because of Nick Foles' game is that the Cardinals lost, and me and Chase were having this debate earlier, and I think this ends the Cardinals' run at any type of playoff hope because one of the seeds in the NFC is going to be locked up with the Saints and Panthers, whoever doesn't win that division. And then it looks like it's coming down to the 49ers, the Cardinals, and whoever doesn't win the NFC East with the Eagles and Cowboys. And this was a big game for the Colts. The Cardinals. They had just come off a win against the Colts. And this would have been good for them if they could have beat the Eagles and stay in pace with the 49ers.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily consider this out. They're really competing with the 49ers right now, I feel. And you look at the 49ers, both the 49ers and Cardinals play the Seahawks one more time, so we can probably count that a loss for both teams. Then they play each other the last week 17. And they both have fairly easy schedules before then. The Cardinals play Philadelphia, or no, not Philadelphia. They just played St. Louis and Tennessee. And you look at the 49ers, they play Tampa and Atlanta. I feel like this Week 17 game between them is actually going to determine the wild card. I feel like I'm loving what Bruce Arians is doing with this Cardinals team. Granted, they don't have many big wins other than the Colts, but if this team gets going, I could see that game being big, and I can see the Arizona Cardinals. I know they lost to the 49ers earlier, winning that game and maybe getting that wild card spot that nobody really saw them getting.
I'm going to disagree with that because I think this 49ers team is a lot better than this Cardinals team. They've already beat each other once. I mean, the 49ers have already beat the Cardinals, so they have that tiebreaker. So in a sense, they're almost 2 games up. And I think that Tennessee, who is still fighting for a playoff spot, and the Rams are better than who the 49ers have to play. Who were they, Chase? I think it was the Falcons.
Falcons and I believe the Rams.
No, they're not playing whoever else they're playing with the Falcons just isn't up to caliber with the teams that the Cardinals have to play. And like I said before,
Tampa Bay.
Sorry, Tampa Bay. One of the worst teams in the league. So I think this 49ers team is going to wrap up the division, and I think the leader of the NFC East has a better chance. I mean, the second place team in the NFC East has a better chance of beating them out for the last wild card spot than the Cardinals.
I really think I think you're underestimating the Cardinals. You look at some of their wins this year. The Cardinals have beat Detroit, Carolina. They beat and Indianapolis. The only major win that the 49ers have against a good team is Green Bay, and that was for the week 1. I I think the 49ers are a good team. Believe me, I saw it 2 weeks ago when they played the Redskins. But they are very inconsistent. They have Crabtree back, that's good, but I don't think Kaepernick's that good of a quarterback. I think this Cardinals team's doing well, and they're just underrated because they're the Cardinals. They haven't been good since they last had that Super Bowl run with Kurt Warner.
Yeah, I do understand where you're coming from. I don't know if I trust Carson Palmer with a playoff spot on the line, finishing the season up. I think I put the hands in Kaepernick because he's been to the Super Bowl, and he may have the amount of experience in playoff games as Carson Palmer just because Palmer's been around longer. But I think that Kaepernick is a better football player. I think that the Niners have more weapons, even though the Cardinals have Larry Fitzgerald. The Niners just got Crabtree back, as you mentioned. They have Vernon Davis. They have Frank Gore. The defense is better than the Cardinals. And I would be surprised if this team got in over the 49ers.
Well, you might want to look at, they're playing the Seahawks Week 16. And right now the Seahawks have clinched the playoff spot. For all we know, by Week 16, they might be benching their starters a bit. At this point, they're so far ahead.
I did hear that there would be a good chance that some of the star players on the Seahawks would not be finishing out the season, especially if they can get this win this week and essentially lock up that number 1 seed. So you are right in that sense. They'll have to beat the 49ers first, though, which we'll talk about later in the show when we preview, and that'll be a good one. But I understand where you're coming from. And I wouldn't say count out the Cardinals, but this game definitely hurt them. And it seems like you're saying the Cardinals are a good team, and my team, the Eagles, just beat them. So are the Eagles a great team? What do you think? Eagles and Cowboys, are they going to give this Cowboys, are they going to overtake them?
I think they definitely could. They got an easier schedule. I'm not going to put the Eagles as a great team. They're a very good team. They're a very good team, much better than I thought they were going to be going into the season. Shout out to my cousin Gary. I know I talked a lot of trash about the Eagles saying this wasn't their year. I was completely wrong. But I think they're a very good team, but they didn't flat out destroy the Cardinals. It was a 24-21. Granted, I know the Cardinals had a last-minute run. They were up by a lot more at the end, and it probably doesn't show the exact score, but I feel like this Eagles team could have done a little bit more. Foles had a good game. It's just, I feel like they didn't flat out destroy the Cardinals either. And that's what great teams like the Seahawks do.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I wouldn't say Foles had a good game. I would say he had a great game, just continuing his great season. Real quick before we move on, how many touchdowns does he throw before he throws his first interception? He had one. There was an interception at the end of the game, but there was a holding penalty, so that was called back. They're not playing the greatest defenses finishing out the season. They have the Lions, they have the Bears, they have the Vikings, and then finish the season with the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to go as high and say 25 touchdowns before the first interception.
And he currently has 19?
He has 19 right now. The record is 20.
If he didn't do it against Arizona, which is surprising because Arizona has a very good secondary and their defense is underrated. And none of these defenses do look good. I could see him getting to 25, but I'd say it's probably like 23, 24.
All right. That'll wrap up our first segment of the show. Just before we head out, I do want to say one point, though, about Nick Foles. I was looking up him versus some other quarterbacks who are thought to be elite or at least be very good quarterbacks. Tom Brady, 19 touchdowns like Foles, but that falls with 8 interceptions. Roethlisberger, not an elite quarterback, but he has the Super Bowl rings, 21 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And Joe Flacco, the reigning Super Bowl champion, who just got that huge contract extension, 16 touchdowns, I believe 12 interceptions. So Nick Foles is playing up to caliber with some very impressive quarterbacks. And it's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, you could even put him in the conversation. He's a sophomore. You could put him in the conversation that right now he might even be better than RG3, better than Kaepernick, maybe better than Andrew Luck. So that's 3 guys who were talked about all last year, and you didn't hear Nick Foles' name once. And now I would make the argument that they're better. He's better than those guys right now. But that's all for the first half. Those are what we considered the biggest games of the week. We'll be back to talk about even more games. If you guys want to call in, the number is 203-254-4002. We'll be back in a minute. Again, that is 203-254-4002. Thanks, guys.
Shows the telltale signs of being wasted. He attempts to high-five everyone on the way to his section, spilling his $10 beer everywhere. Back in his seat, he screams, "Defense," His friends remind him it's halftime. He takes off his shirt and starts flexing for the camera. He refers to his muscles as gunboats. Jim screams, "How's this for a halftime show?" He tells the story about the time he flexed for the halftime show. His friend informs him that it just happened. To redeem himself, he streaks the field. Jim makes it to midfield before being tackled. The Jumbotron captures it all.
It's easy to tell if you've had way too many to drive. But what if you've had just one too many to drive? Never underestimate just a few. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Right now, nearly 30% of U.S. students aren't finishing high school. In many places, it's even higher than that. And fixing it is a responsibility that we all share. This is President Obama, and I urge everyone to take responsibility for encouraging the high school students in your communities, to support them, challenge them, and do whatever it takes to help them make it through.
Do your part by going to boostup.org and giving a student the boost that's needed to make it to graduation. A message from the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Dr. Jack Burks for the MS Association of America.
In 1993, we had no treatments for multiple sclerosis. Now we have 6 approved by the FDA. But these treatments only help people who take them. So therefore, the idea of getting on a medication early in the disease, at the first sign of MS, is critically important.
For more information, contact your doctor or the MS Association of America at 1-800-532-7667 or visit msassociation.org.
It might be the door alarm, or the new safety drain covers, the pool fencing, even the swim lessons. But the fact is, you can never know which safety step will save a life until it does. Adding multiple safety steps to your safe pool practices can mean the difference between a close call and a call to 911. Simple steps save lives. To learn some new ones, visit poolsafely.gov. A public service message from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, the American Red Cross, and YMCA of the USA.
All right, we're back. We have our friend John on the phone. John, what do you got to say? John, are you there?
You there, John?
Well, we had our friend John on the phone. Not sure what happened. Maybe he hung up. We'll look for him to call back. So, kind of awkward, but
yeah,
we'll move on. I don't know. That's all you can do. We'll blame John on that one. We're doing everything we can. So how about we'll just continue with the Steelers and Ravens. Pretty big game there. The Thursday night football game on Thanksgiving, the primetime game. What are your thoughts on that one?
Steelers versus Ravens. That's a big game. It really was deciding who's gonna make a play in not only their division but maybe for a wild card spot as well. Winner goes to 6-6, loser goes to 5-7. Steelers were making a big comeback in the second half of the year that many people didn't really see given their pretty rough start. But I think the Ravens, this one was big. They managed to get past Mike Tomlin's little incident.
Literally and figuratively, they got past Mike Tomlin.
But yeah, it was a big win for them. It was. I think it matters a lot for both teams. I think this sort of puts the Steelers out and keeps the Ravens in. Granted, nobody's out because it's the AFC. The wild card spot's probably going to be a 500 team. But yeah, what do you think about Tomlin and the $100,000 fine? Do you agree with that, or do you think he should have gotten more? Maybe a draft pick, which is still up in the air. They said.
I think a draft pick is too harsh because a draft pick is then for the whole team, and that wasn't his whole. It wasn't the whole team; it was him. So if anything, a fine is appropriate because that's coming out of his pocket. It was his fault. He should have to pay for it, not the fans who would have to pay. Who cares? If you're a Steelers fan, who cares if Mike Tomlin pays $100,000? He probably made that much in a quarter. But it does affect you if they take away a draft pick because that affects your team and the way this team is going to run throughout the next couple seasons. $100,000 is a lot. but I don't think it's excessive. He's in a leadership position, and when you're in a leadership position, you have to enact leadership, and that's showing nothing to his team about how to be good sports and how to be a team player and to play the rules of the game and to play correctly. And so I don't think $100,000 is excessive. It's basically what the Jets coach that year got for tripping the Miami Dolphins player.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's fine. What do you think? No draft pick is too much. $100,000 is fine.
Well, I feel like they need to put. I think they should put a little more, because then you're going to start having teams having like maybe their assistant coaches do that, knowing they're only going to get like $100,000 fine. The team will compensate for it. And you look at that game, it was the Steelers lost by 2 points. That could have easily been a game-deciding factor if, let's say, the Steelers ended up getting an extra field goal. If Jacoby Jones could have returned that, then that would have been the game. And I feel like a lot more pressure would have been on Tomlin if, let's say, that was the game. The Steelers end up winning because of that. I feel like there can be more that's done. I wouldn't say necessarily a draft pick, but maybe do more than $100,000. I'm saying closer to $500. You got to put a lot of. I'd say you got to take a stance now before it happens again.
That's still a lot, though. I mean, $500,000, even for these guys who are making a ton of money, is a lot. Just to put it in perspective, if you're making $50,000 a year, that's going to take you 10 years to make that much. So you're going to take away an average person's 10-year salary just because he got in the way of one play. It was stupid. He apologized for it. I think it was sincere. But yeah, you bring up a good point.
It's not an average person. It's Mike Tomlin.
I think $100,000 is fine. But you do bring up the good point, Chase, that it could have been a lot worse, because I believe the Steelers missed a 2-point conversion that would have sent the game into overtime. And if that had happened, completely different story. He's thankful that the Ravens won. But even bigger, I think, than that story is these two teams are fighting for that 6th spot in the AFC wildcard race. And just as I was going over the Tomlin incident, and we had our friend Vin walk in. He was here before. Go ahead, Vin.
Hey, guys.
So what do you think, Vin? The Steelers lost this game. They're one game behind the Ravens. I believe the Ravens beat the Steelers earlier.
Yes, they did.
So they have the 2-game lead over.
No, I think the Steelers actually ended up
so
winning
Steelers
that.
beat the Ravens. So they're tied for the tiebreaker is 1-1. I don't know who has more division wins. So we'll say that the Steelers are behind the Ravens by a game now. Do you see the Steelers team overtaking the Ravens in that spot? You also have a couple other teams in the mix, but what about this Steelers team?
Well, I personally think that the Steelers are just are going to get that 6th spot in the playoffs with that wild card spot. But yeah, I do think that the Steelers are a great team. Big Ben knows how to win, and last game he played, he showed that he's composed enough when he sits in the pocket. He doesn't really panic. He waits for the defense to come to him. And then he just goes ahead and just throws it. And I know it's kind of not exactly the most intelligent thing to say, but it's true. If you watch him play, he's just so composed back there.
He's very composed. I think the Ravens are just a better team. I think the Steelers, granted, they had a very good comeback the second half of the year, but I think the Ravens they've done it before. They got into the Super Bowl last year. They have experience. They're going to have their ups and downs, but I feel like the Ravens are the better team, and when it comes to the playoffs, if Flacco starts playing like he did in the playoffs, like he did last year, then I don't know how to consider this Ravens team not a competitor, even for the Super Bowl. You think that these other teams are good, but the Ravens have shown flashes of how good they were last year in the playoffs. And if they can play that well again, I'd say why not.
I don't know if I actually think this Steelers team is a better team than the Ravens. I think it showed throughout the game. I mean, the Ravens needed 5 field goals to win that game. And Roethlisberger had more yards than Flacco. He had an extra touchdown than Flacco. The Ravens have no running game at all. Ray Rice is just having an awful season. And Le'Veon Bell is showing up for this Steelers team. But the difference is the schedule. And the Steelers still have some pretty tough games left. They have to play Cincinnati, the leader of the division, a rivalry game. They have to go to Green Bay, which is in 3 weeks, so Aaron Rodgers should be back by then. They have to play Miami, who is right ahead of them for that 6th spot, which we'll get to when we preview the games. And the Steelers' schedule just doesn't compare to that. And I think that the Ravens' schedule doesn't compare to that. And I think the Steelers are a better team but their schedule is just not in their favor, and they really should have had this one, and that would have been a big move for them. But they didn't get it, and so I don't think they're getting into the playoffs.
Well, yeah, you can look at their next 3 games. It's just ridiculous. They play Miami, Cincinnati, and then Green Bay. And Green Bay will have Aaron Rodgers back by then.
He should.
Most
definite yet.
Most likely.
And he won't be rusty either.
It's Aaron Rodgers. That team's any team with Aaron Rodgers is going to be good. And you look at how deadly the Packers are. They go 5-0 or they are 5-1 with Aaron Rodgers, and then they've lost or tied the rest of their games since losing him. He's a difference maker to that team, so that team's going to be very good. So I can't see the Steelers getting back. The Ravens are just. I'd like to say the Steelers are a better team, but I just don't think so. I think the Ravens team, yes, the Steelers team has experience given how many Super Bowls they've been to, even though it was a while back, but I just feel like the Ravens team's better. They've done it more recently. Flacco can be good regardless of if he when or when not, and I don't think he was worth anywhere close to what they paid him, but he has shown flashes of brilliance. And granted, they do play some hard teams. They play Detroit, New England, Cincinnati, but I feel like they're better than Detroit. I feel like they can beat Cincinnati. New England, I could see an upset there. The New England Patriots are just a team that's likely to do that. They almost lost to the Texans, who have lost now 10 in a row. I think this Ravens team's good enough, and if they do make the playoffs, then you can consider them dangerous. I don't consider them very dangerous now, but I still feel like they're going to make that wild card.
You have to give it up for Case Keenum in that Houston game. He played unbelievably. Mm-hmm. And I think if Baltimore can get to that spot, I personally think that Pittsburgh's a better team. But I know statistically they are on paper. But if Baltimore does get in that spot, they can be a very dangerous team.
Well, then why don't we think about another game that had implications with both these teams, the Miami Dolphins and New York Jets, who were both 5-6 coming into it. The winner was going to be tied. Both Ravens, Steelers, Jets, and Dolphins were all 5-6 going into this game, and 2 of them were going to come out on top and be the leaders for this last wild card spot. And the Dolphins did it, and they did it with style. They blew out the Jets. Geno Smith looked awful. And now the Dolphins are tied with the Ravens for that 6th spot. What do you guys think? Who's better there, the Dolphins or the Ravens? And then are the Jets out now? I know, Chase, you don't think so. I think they're still in it. Chase, you think they're out. I think they're still in it. I say let them play the Raiders this week. A Raiders team that's 4-8. Still technically in the mix for this playoff spot, so they're going to be fighting. If the Jets lose to that, then fine, they're out. They've looked awful. They've lost 3 in a row. But I'm not ready to say they're out yet.
Personally, as a Jets fan, I believe that. Yeah, personally as a Jets fan, I believe that we can get into the playoffs if we have the right guy under center. I mean, Geno versus Sims, but I personally saw a few good things in Sims. He has a better arm than Geno, personally, but Geno has more confidence, and he can run out the side of the pocket.
I don't think Geno's good enough. I don't think really Sims is. I feel like this Jets team is sort of realizing that they're not as good as people thought they were. They, again, as I've been saying, they reminded me of Mark Sanchez's Jets, where they've been pulling them along, except the team isn't as good as Mark Sanchez's team was. But I just think I think the Dolphins are. I think the Dolphins, it's really up to grabs for the Dolphins and Ravens right now. I think the Ravens are a good team and they have a harder schedule than the Dolphins coming up. But I think this really proves the Jets now 3 losses in a row. I know this was supposed to be their loss week if you go according to their win-loss. But I think that this really is a big one for the Dolphins. They prove that they're a good team. They're going to be a contender. Now they just need to beat Pitt, New England, Buffalo, and then the Jets again. I don't see them beating New England, but Pittsburgh, Buffalo, and New York are all winnable games.
All right, we have a caller, someone who called in. His name is Justin. He wants to talk about the Jets. All right, Justin, you there?
Yeah.
What do you want to say about the Jets?
Well, I have 2 questions.
Go ahead.
First one, Chase, where did you put the TV remote?
Okay, and next question?
Number 2, Yeah, I heard you guys think that some of you guys think that the Jets are going to get into the playoffs, but that's pretty ridiculous. They're pretty bad, and they need to start from scratch. I think Rex gets fired after this year, and wouldn't be surprised if, depending on Manziel's status, if they try to get another quarterback, because Geno's obviously not the answer, and neither is Matt Sims.
Justin, I think the remote's probably somewhere around my desk. Not exactly sure. And
All right.
To answer the second question, I completely agree. I think the Jets are out of it. I think they're just coming back down to earth. People who started saying, well, Geno isn't that bad. They're getting these wins. That's all that matters. I think people are going to start seeing him as like, I think one person to compare him to would be Tebow. He got wins, but he wasn't that good, and there's a reason why nobody really has him on their team now, because he's not that good of a quarterback. And I think Geno's sort of the same way. I think he might have a little bit more potential than Tebow, but I don't think this team's going to get anywhere. I think they're just going to start falling, and they're not going to be looking like the team that they did that beat the Saints, that beat the New England Patriots.
Well, Justin,
Yeah.
you say you're a Jets fan, and as a Jets fan,
no,
I
I'm
know
not a
you're
Jets
biased. But do you see them completely out yet? Do you think that there's any chance that they can get in, barring a miracle? Or as a Jets fan, are you completely done with this season?
No, I'm not a Jets fan at all. I hate the Jets.
Oh, sorry, my bad. So as just an NFL fan.
Oh, no, they're completely done. They don't have a shot. I mean, if in that division that they play in, there's no way. There's no way they're going to wrap up the wild card with all these 6-6 teams. They don't have a chance. I mean, I know they play Oakland, Cleveland, and Carolina, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they lose 2 out of 3, and the only way they would get in is to win all 3, and they're not beating Carolina.
All right, Vin, you want to make a point?
Yeah, Justin, I'm a Jets fan, and I think I have to agree with you with that one. San Diego's looking good, but the remainder of their schedule is kind of hard. But we don't have a quarterback right now, and that's the most important position on the field. And you kind of brought up the whole Johnny Manziel argument, whether or not we could get him, but I don't even don't get me wrong, I love Johnny Manziel as a college quarterback, but I don't really see him fitting into the Jets' scheme, their system, and I personally like Rex Ryan. Our defense has been sensational, but the only problem is our quarterback, and maybe if we look for different things in the quarterback, we will be successful in the future, but as of now, I mean, I think I have to agree with you. That spot is looking pretty vague right now.
All right, Justin, well, we appreciate you calling in. Thanks for commenting on the Jets. It seems like everyone's ready just to end their season and just get ready for the draft pick. So thanks for calling in, Justin.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so that's basically a story about the Jets. It's very easy to get caught up in them just because they're from New York and everyone wants to hate the Jets. But don't forget about the Dolphins in this situation. Now they're 6-6 with this Ravens team. So they're looking good, like they could get in.
Yeah, no, they really are. It's I said earlier, I think it's either Dolphins or Ravens at this point. They're both very good teams. They're both good teams, and I think the Dolphins have been more consistent with their wins. But at the same time, I feel like the Ravens have a higher ceiling, just a lower floor at the same time. And I feel like the Dolphins actually might have a little bit of an advantage. You look at the schedule; they play Pittsburgh, Buffalo, New York teams that they can beat, or New York Jets, and then they do have New England. But
both the Dolphins and the Ravens do have to play New England, so that's pretty interesting there.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. I don't really see New England losing to the Dolphins, as I could see maybe New England losing to the Ravens. But I feel like the Dolphins might have an easier schedule. Granted, Pittsburgh's had some good games. Buffalo's always in every game that they're in. Most of the games they play to the last minute. And then New York Jets, they're not doing too well, but you never know. They can always pull out a win here, there. You can look at the first half of the season to prove that.
Don't forget about San Diego too. I know they're 5-7 right now, but they could potentially finish 8-8. And
I'm going to say no to San Diego just because they still have to play Denver and Kansas City.
But they beat Kansas already.
I don't think they beat them twice in a row. That's just my opinion.
I think they're good, but they're going to get to 8-8. I think a 9-7 team is going to probably win the division. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's going to be 8-8.
All right, so before we head to the previews, we'll just a couple notable games real quick. We had the Lions killing the Packers 40-10, just a blowout there. So there was that. And another notable one, the Cowboys beating the Raiders on Thanksgiving, keeping pace with the Eagles. And I think that basically sums it up for the week. The Bengals also beat the Chargers, which were two pretty good teams. Chargers, as Vin said, still fighting, but I think they're done. So those were the notable games to recap. We'll be back after a quick commercial break with the previews of next week's games, which there are a lot of interesting ones. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, what's this? Hold it now. This is the milk. Oh, whole milk in this carton. But wait, low fat and no fat. Low fat and no fat. Now, they're milk too, and yet their names rhyme. Whole milk, low fat, no fat. Wow, that's a lot of milk, huh?
This man may sound odd to you and me.
Oh, and look at this. Cheese. Now, cheese is made out of milk, huh?
But to his 3-year-old daughter who is helping to pick out food she likes, he makes perfect sense.
All different kinds of cheese. Honey, here's one. Oh, it has holes in it.
Learning starts long before school does, and children are naturally curious. They want to learn, so follow their lead. Take simple everyday moments like riding the bus, getting ready for work, or even shopping for groceries, and turn them into learning moments.
It's called Swiss.
Swiss has holes.
That's right. Hey, now, wait a minute. This one's called Gorgonzola. Can you say Gorgonzola?
Gorgonzola.
All right, we can work on that one.
Turn everyday moments into learning moments. Find out how at foreignlearning.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Subir de peso fue fácil. Perderlo es mucho más difícil. Tengo que esforzarme todos los días. Pero con cada paso, reduzco mi riesgo de padecer diabetes tipo 2 y enfermedades cardíacas. Y eso hace que
Gracias, papá.
valgan mucho la pena.
Aprenda cómo usted puede ayudar a ponerle alto a la diabetes al perder peso, comer saludable y ser más activo. Visite portufamilia.org o llame al 1-800-DIABETES. Un mensaje de la Asociación Americana de la Diabetes.
All right, we're back, and we have Chase's uncle on the phone. We're going to bring him in. Hello?
Dan?
Yes.
Hey, Dan, what's your question?
I'd just like to know who you guys think's going to come out of the NFC East and the the NFC and the AFC. If you think anyone's going to beat the Seahawks, and if you think Peyton Manning can beat Brady finally.
Well, that's an interesting question, and I think a lot of it has to depend on how the season finishes out. I think if the Carolina Panthers beat the Saints this week, which is the big game of the week, then yes, Panthers have a very good shot of beating the Seahawks. Similar quarterbacks in Wilson and Newton. Similar defense that I mentioned before. They're interchangeable in the 1 and 2 for points and yards given up on D. So that's a very good chance I see of the Panthers beating the Seahawks. I give the edge to the Seahawks because they'll be playing at home, and you can't beat that home crowd. So I think the Seahawks will take it in the NFC. And I think, as you brought up, Denver and Patriots, that's gonna be who it comes down to in the AFC. I don't see a team like the Colts or the Cincinnati Bengals upsetting either one, and then it's going to be another classic Brady and Peyton Manning battle in the AFC Championship game. I don't see Manning losing twice to Brady. Even if it's at Gillette, I think it's going to be a Seahawks and Denver Super Bowl. What do you think, Chase?
I'd say it's most likely to be Seahawks, Denver. In the NFC, I really don't know if there's a team that's going to be able to upset the Seahawks. I could see the Saints going and playing them again, but it would be at the Seahawks.
The Saints look very bad against them. I would give the Panthers definite edge over the Saints to upset them.
Exactly. And I'd like to say maybe the Panthers, but I just don't see anything on the Panthers offense that is going to stop the Seahawks. I think that the defense of the Seahawks couldn't stop. If you look on the AFC side, I'd say maybe the Colts, because the Colts just have such a high ceiling. They've already proven they can beat very good teams, but I just don't see them pulling up enough wins back to back. I'd say it's Denver, just because I don't see Peyton Manning losing twice in a row to Tom Brady. But at the same time, it's Peyton Manning in the playoffs. Peyton Manning's never done that well in the playoffs,
and Brady has Peyton's number. I think Brady's now 10-4 against Manning in the times they've met up, and playoff wise, I believe Brady's beaten Peyton more times in the playoffs. Vin, what do you think, real quick? Who comes out on top, the NFC and the AFC?
Seahawks, because of that. We saw the impact of the 12th man against New Orleans, and it was just devastating. And I know Chase and I have personally had a couple of heated arguments about Peyton Manning in the playoffs, and I just personally think that the Broncos are going to emerge out of the AFC.
Yeah, it's just we see it every year that Peyton Manning gets in. Like last year, he lost to the Ravens. It's just I don't know if I can exactly trust Peyton Manning yet. Danny, do you have any things to add on the subject?
Not really. I do like Seattle at home, but they're tough to beat, and the impact of the 12th man is unbelievable, and as well as the weather, and it's typically raining, and they play well in the rain. But I've got two more quick questions. They're a little not off topic, but a little different questions. Do you think Johnny Manziel is a top 10 pick in this year's draft if he comes out, and do you think Mike Shanahan is going to return?
Johnny Manziel, I think he could be a top 10 prospect. I don't know if he has,
because of the that quarterback who's. I'm not too big into college sports, but I know I think it was Oregon's quarterback who's now studying for his junior year. So maybe now after that.
That's a good point. And I also think just quarterbacks always seem to be overvalued in the draft, and there's a reason why, because they're so important. And so I could see that happening. And then if you look at Shanahan, I'm not sure. I think it really depends on how many wins they get the rest of the season. I think he's good enough. I think they're a few pieces away, but there's still a lot wrong with this team. Maybe they give him a shot with the money back from the salary cap, but we'll see.
And I don't think see Johnny Manziel as a top 10 pick. You've seen him make gutsy plays in college, and it's just not going to work out well for him in the NFL.
All right. Thank you for calling, Dan.
You got it. Take care, guys. You guys are doing great.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
You got it.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dan, for calling in. We love any callers and any topics, no matter what point in the show. But now we're gonna stay. We're a flexible group of guys, but now we got to get back on track to the previews. And as we talked about now, the Panthers and the Saints are now playing each other, and this is huge. This is maybe bigger than the Kansas City and Denver game, at least equal, because it's going to decide just like that who gets the first round bye and who has to go on the road and play a tough team, either probably the Lions or the Cowboys and Eagles. This is a big game.
Yeah, the only game I see bigger than this later in the season is the second game versus Panthers-Saints. These are two very good teams. Both have been doing very well. Granted, Saints are coming off a loss, and Panthers have won 8 in a row. Many people don't really realize that, but the Panthers are a very, very good team. And this is going to be the battle for the NFC South. One of these two teams is obviously going to come out on top. And a lot of people thought Saints were just running away with it. There's no way any other team's going to come up. But the Panthers have made such a good move, winning 8 in a row. I don't know who's going to win this, because it's just such a big game. It's like both teams are so high-powered and can do anything.
Well, considering that New Orleans is such a different team at home than on the road, I mean, we've seen them lose to the Jets, and we've seen them lose to the Patriots, and also the Seahawks. I just see them coming out this week with the win. But, I mean, it's going to be a tough battle, though. You have Luke Kuechly anchoring the defense, and, of course, you have super Cam Newton at quarterback.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting you bring up the home field, and I'm just thinking back to Dan's question. And when you're looking at the teams who are going to go to the Super Bowl, the Denver, it's going to be playing New York. Awful decision, but that's where it's going to be played. It's going to be cold. It could be snowing. It's going to be windy. Seattle Seahawks, Denver Broncos, and New England Patriots are all used to that. But the Carolina Panthers are not, and the Saints especially are not. So that's just another interesting point, and just to show how home field advantage works out. A little off topic. But again, the Saints will be at home, and I think I give them the advantage this week. I think they're ready after what happened last week. It was probably a wake-up call. And also, the Saints are a great defense. They didn't show it against Seattle, but they are. And as Carolina Panthers, as they play tough defenses this year, they haven't been successful. They've won the game. They won the game against the Niners, but only put up 10 points. They lost to the Panthers and only put up 7 points. So I'm thinking that this is Drew Brees' week and that they're going to come out on top.
Yeah, I guess I'd put an edge to the Saints, but at the same and it's mostly just because of the home. They're a different team when they're away, but when they're at home, they are very good. And I think if there's a person that's strong enough to bounce back from a loss like they had against Seattle, it would be Drew Brees. But you can't say enough about the Panthers. They're gonna, if the Saints win, they're stopping an 8-game win streak. I just think the Panthers are good. They could just keep rolling on and roll over the Saints.
So another good game that's coming up this week. I don't know how the Saints do it. It seems like they're in a primetime game every week, and it's always the big story. So we look forward to that one. But another game, which basically has the same implications, just on a smaller scale, is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts. Both teams 8-4, both at the top of their division. And this is going to decide, I think, who gets to play Kansas City and who gets to play the sloppy winner of that 6th spot, which is huge. And I don't think it can get a lot bigger than that. And even if the Bengals lose, you're now opening it up for the Ravens. If they can beat the Vikings this week, there would be one game out of the Bengals, and they still play each other. So if the Bengals can't take care of the Colts this week, you're opening up for the Ravens to take away that division from them, which I think they've had in control all year, and that would be horrible for them if they give that up.
Yeah, a Colts win here would leave the Bengals very vulnerable. I think they're both good teams. I think the Colts, as I've mentioned before, they have a very high ceiling but a very low floor. The Bengals, they have had some consistency problems, but for the most part, they've been, roughly what you're going to get from them, or at least maybe a little bit better than the Colts if you want to compare them. But I don't know what to expect here because they're both good teams. I think it really just depends on how each come out and play because they're both young. They're both very volatile. And can beat any team but can lose any at the same time.
I think I got to go with Cincinnati on this one just because I'm a firm believer of defense wins championships. And I know it's just not going to win the championship, but, just still, though, I just personally think Cincinnati's defense is just going to stop Andrew Luck here.
Yeah, you talk about the inconsistency. I think of both teams, really. Indianapolis has some huge wins this year. They've beaten San Francisco. They've beaten Seattle. They've beaten Denver. We just talked about how Seattle and Denver are going to be in the Super Bowl, and now there's a team that beat both of them. But they lose to awful teams, and you can't have that in the NFL. And then I'm also going to agree with you, Vin. I think the Bengals are going to take this one. But the Bengals, same thing. They've beaten good teams like the Patriots, and then have had horrible losses. So both teams 8-4, both two young quarterbacks. This is going to be a fun one to watch. I think it's going to be a grudge match.
Yeah, if you want to look at them, they're like the second half of the season Jets. They can't put back-to-back wins together. It's just win loss win loss win, and this is supposedly this looks like it'll be a lost week if you just want to follow the pattern. But I think the Bengals are good. You look at A.J. Green. They got Dalton's been playing fairly well recently. And you look at Luck, he's up and down. He might throw a few interceptions, but he'll also have he'll pull together a fourth quarter drive. And I feel like if Bengals need to be up by 2 possessions going at the end of this game, because I don't think they can leave the Colts just there to take it. I think the Bengals need to win this game. They can't just sort of hope that the Colts don't play well.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. And the Cincinnati D is actually very good. I believe they're an underrated defense. They're 5th in the league in points and 6th in yards. So you don't really hear about the Cincinnati D. You could maybe even consider them a top 5 defense. And look to that against the wide receiving core of the Colts. And the Colts don't really even have a running game. Trent Richardson wasn't even starting this week. But so that's a good one there. Another good game this week we have is the Seattle Seahawks and San Francisco 49ers. Not as big as the first matchup, not as big as they played each other last year, just because of how well the Seahawks are playing. But as I brought up earlier, the Niners still need to fight for that playoff spot. And Chase, you don't want to count out the Cardinals. And I think that the Eagles and Cowboys, whoever don't get that, have a good chance of beating out Niners for that. So this is going to be a big game for them. I don't think they'll win, but I don't know how Seattle's mindset's going to be after basically clinching the number 1 spot.
Yeah, I think Seattle's mindset could get to them. I just feel like Seattle, the reason why the first game was so big was because coming into the season, everybody looked at them as Seattle and 49ers as number 1A and number 1B. They were both very good. Nobody knew what was going to happen. And then I think since that first game, and including what happened in the first game, Seattle's just sort of moved on and continued having that number 1 spot. And the 49ers have fallen back a little. It might have been because they didn't have good receiving for the first for a while. Now they got Crabtree back, this offense could pick up again. But I feel like the Seattle Seahawks are a better team, and I think this has developed into a rivalry. Seattle Seahawks are going to come out to play no matter what.
I have to agree with you there, Chase, and I'm not sure if you've ever watched the full Seattle Seahawks game all the way through, but their defense just swarms.
It's kind of hard to because they blow out teams. You don't want to watch that. I know we're all in our lounge. That's where we got the name of the show, in our residence hall, and half the guys left at halftime because it was just a blowout.
Yeah, believe me, I've seen the Seattle defense play before. I saw them live. They are monsters. They're Brandon Bowner. Well, he's facing suspension now, but Richard Sherman. They look like they're linebackers and they're playing cornerback. People talk about wanting to have big receivers on their team like A.J. Green or like Julio Jones, but the Seahawks came out to match them. They have 2 over 6 foot tall corners that are just monsters and will beat anyone to a ball that tries to get physical with them.
Don't forget KJ Wright too at linebacker.
Well, the San Fran D is still good too. They're 3rd in points and 5th in yards, so it's going to be a key defensive matchup. Real quickly, guys, we talked a lot about this earlier. The Miami-Pittsburgh game, huge for both teams. Bigger for the Steelers, though. If the Steelers lose this and then still have to go play Green Bay and Cincinnati, they're done. And the Dolphins will be in great shape for that last spot. What are your quick thoughts on this one?
I'd say Miami. I feel like they've come together as a team as opposed to tearing apart since was the lineman's name that
Incognito.
Incognito, sorry. Since he left, I feel like the team's actually come together as opposed to being torn apart. I feel like they all were sort of on Incognito's side, and that's given them a little bit of fire. Steelers are coming off a harsh loss to the Ravens. They might feel a little bit depleted since they lost to them, and I feel like the Miami knows that they can take it. And I feel like the Steelers are going to feel a little beat.
I'll say Miami only if Ryan Tannehill comes to play. I mean, you saw what he did against the Jets. He had over 300 yards, and as a Jets fan, it was excruciating to watch, but at the same time, it was just amazing to see like a young quarterback have that much poise and just that much confidence in the pocket.
All right, and last 2 games, pretty big for all 4 teams. One game's bigger for me just because it's the Eagles and Lions, but then you also have the Cowboys and Bears, the 2 teams at the top of the NFC North and NFC East. The Lions and Eagles is bigger for me just because of the way Nick Foles has been playing, and because this is a big game to decide who might get the 3rd spot and who might get the 4th spot. There's really no, it's not, the NFC isn't like the AFC where you're going to get a bad team coming in the 6th spot. You're going to be playing a good team no matter what, but that's still a big deal to get 3rd over 4. And this could be the tiebreaker if the Lions and if the Eagles win the division and the Lions end up having the same record, whoever wins this game. And again, the Lions don't have the greatest D in the world. I mean, the D line's pretty good, but the secondary is not, and so a good chance for Nick Foles to keep shining on.
Yeah, I feel like it's a big game, but I feel like both of these teams are. I feel like it's a little bit bigger for the Eagles because if they lost, they're not as much in control of the division.
Oh, yeah. The Eagles are already behind the Cowboys because of tiebreakers. So if they lose this and the Cowboys can beat the Bears, they're 2 games out now. So this is a must-win for the Eagles. It's also a must-win because it's the toughest team the Eagles have faced since they've made this run. And you want to play. As a fan, I want them to play good teams, and I want them to beat good teams to show that they're here for real. Vin, what do you think? Either game, Cowboys, Bears, or Eagles, Lions.
With the Eagle Lions, it's going to be interesting, but I would just love to see how Foles reacts, like when he actually throws an interception. I mean, you need to see what he's actually made of, what his character is, and if he actually does have what it takes to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd like to see that, and then you want to look on the Cowboys-Bears. I feel like this is just as big, if not bigger. Cowboys have been doing well. Bears are, if they lose, I feel like they're out. I feel like they've just had too many losses fairly recently, and I think the Cowboys have been doing well. They just beat the Giants when a lot of people said they weren't going to, and I feel like they're going to end up pulling this game out. What do you think, then?
I think that the Cowboys are going to pull it out too. I mean, I think Chicago's still a little. I'm not sure, but like shaken up after that weird loss in Minnesota. But yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Tony Romo's going to pull it out.
All right, we have someone on the line who wants to talk about the Eagles. Go ahead, state your name and where you're from. We only got about 1 minute left, so we'll do this quick.
Okay, my name's Pete. I'm from Philadelphia.
All right, the Eagles. I'm guessing you want to talk about them?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure the Eagles have to pretty much run the table over the Cowboys to take the division. I think it's going to come down to, can Romo perform in December, and can Nick Foles continue to play at the high level he's at? And I think Chase had a tough time over Thanksgiving break watching his Redskins fall to the bottom of the barrel. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, so as an Eagles fan, I agree with you, and they definitely have. It's their division to lose. The Eagles can win out and win this division. I'm just going to take this one just because there's not much time left. Thank you for calling in. And Yeah, you're right with that. It's their division to lose. I don't think Tony Romo is going to keep up how he's been playing. He has the history of not being a good December quarterback. And Nick Foles, it's his time to shine. He's never had this opportunity before, and how great would it be to see him get into the playoffs after losing the starting quarterback position. We'll throw this one over to Chase just because you're his cousin. What do you think, Chase, as a Redskins fan? We won't take your point too seriously, but Eagles, Cowboys.
I think it's all going to come down to the Week 17 game. You look at it's Eagles versus Cowboys. I think that's really going to decide. Both of them, I feel like, can win out and have the strength too, and it's going to be interesting. It could just come down to Romo not being clutch and the Eagles pulling this out.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting. It was hard Thanksgiving, I'll give you that, though, being a Skins fan.
All right, just a final thought on that. Both teams basically have the same schedule to finish out the year, and then they play each other. So the better team is going to take this one, and I want to see that. I don't want to see any crappy finishes to the season. I want both teams to play hard, and I want it to come down to the last game and let the best team win. Thanks for calling in. That is all the time we have this week. We want to thank you guys again for listening, and we'll be back next week. Thank you for you guys who've called in, and thanks for Vin for showing up and being a guest on the show. We like having you.
Thank you. I like being here.
Yeah, Chase, any final words?
Not much. Not far from winter break. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're running out of shows for the season. We're going to have to take about a month off when we all leave, but keep listening. We try to improve each week, and there's some good games next week that we're excited to recap. This has been The Lounge, Fairfield University's NFL talk show. We'll be back next Wednesday.
Dr. Jack Burks for the MS Association of America.
In 1993, we had no treatments for multiple sclerosis. Now we have 6 approved by the FDA. But these treatments only help people who take them. So therefore, the idea of getting on a medication early in the disease, at the first sign of MS, is critically important.
For more information, contact your doctor or the MS Association of America at 1-800-532-7667 or visit msassociation.org.